What's up, everyone, and welcome to All Things Owensboro Podcast, where ordinary town meets extraordinary stories. I'm your host, Brad Winter, a professional of absolutely nothing, but an enthusiast of good conversation, great stories, and community ministry at First Baptist Church Owensboro. In this episode, we revisit a haunting chapter in our community's history, the unsolved murder of Teri Howell. In the summer of 1980, Terri disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and her body was later discovered. Over 4 decades have passed, but her case remains unsolved, and her family is still left with more questions than answers. Today, her daughter-in-law, Penny Tomes, joins us to share Terri's story, who she was, what happened that summer, and why the search for justice continues. It's a story of heartbreak, unanswered questions, and unshakable determination. This is the story of Teri Howell. And hey, if you're looking for a church home that feels like home, come check out First Baptist Church Owensboro at FBCOWB. We love to have you on a Sunday morning at 8 or 10:30 a.m. You can go to the podcast episode description and send me a text. Let me know you're coming. Let me know where you want to meet, and I will sit with you the whole time and make you feel like you're at home. Looking forward to seeing you. All right, enough chit-chat. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome back to All Things Owensboro, and today's guest is a good one. I know I say that every week, but this one's going to be a little bit different than our usual happy-go-lucky, let's learn about Owensboro. Now, it's not a thing where we're going to be controversial or talking about how we should fix the streets and what we should do with Tom Watson, but this is really about a cold case. So there's some sensitive material in this. So if you're thinking about it, oh, Brad, I'm not prepared for this, we're warning you right now. It's a little deep, but it's a good story. Everybody has a story. That's the point of this podcast. So when Ms. Penny reached out to me and said, hey, I have this story and I like to share it, but I don't think it's what you're really leaning towards with this podcast. Look, a story is a story. And so her story about a cold case about her mother-in-law, Teri Howell, is an interesting story, and it's worth listening to and worth being impacted by. And so, Ms. Penny, thanks again for reaching out to me and also coming on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And so, Ms. Penny, let's go right into it. Tell us a little bit more about your family's story and the cold case that personally impacts you.
Well, the cold case that impacts me would be the one of our own families, Teri Howell's case from July 25th of 1980. I ended up marrying her son, who was 4 at the time of her death. And we ended up staying together for many years, having children of our own, and then later divorcing. But I've continued to advocate for her story, or for her rather, and then tell her story. It's very important that people from our area know about it because it happened right here in Daviess County. It's still unsolved, but we feel in our heart as a family it's still solvable. So I think that's probably the biggest thing to tell about her story specifically. A little detail about it would be she was with her friend one night, July 24th, actually, of 1980. They had been out kind of jumping around to a couple of the local bars together and ended up stopping at one on 4th and Litchfield Road here in Owensboro. They had breakfast in the back of the bar because that was the Continental House and it stayed open for 24 hours. And while there, they ended up trying to get a ride home, was unable to do so. There was someone there at the bar that said, hey, I can give you a ride home. They seemed to think that there was some kind of acquaintance, maybe from Ohio County where Teri kind of grew up and lived for the majority of her life. So they felt comfortable enough, it seems like, getting in the car with this guy. It was a blue, what they think blue, 2-door Ford, had a bench seat in it. The owner of the bar that night as they left said that the person was making kind of a ruckus out front with the girls as they were leaving, and she hollered to the other patrons and said, hey, who's out there making that ruckus? And they replied back, oh, that's just old Payne. And that's basically the last of anybody knowing anything other than her friend that was in the car with her. They ended up traveling out 4th Street that turns on or into 144 there at Reed Road. Her friend said that they were trying to get him to turn around. He wouldn't turn around. He was going in the opposite direction of where they lived, which was on the west end of town. And her friend jumped from the moving car. It was going, approximately 35 mile an hour because she said it was going the speed limit, I believe. And From there, that was the last anyone seen Terri. Terri stayed in the car and didn't take that leap of faith out of the car that night. So until her body was found that following day at around 5 o'clock by a volunteer fireman in the Knoxville area, nobody knew where Terri was. Her mom had started trying to file a missing persons report here with our local police department because she didn't come home that night before and no one could find her. And, they basically told her, oh, you need to wait a little while, come back, 24, 48 hours, give her some time to come home. But Terri's mom knew that that wasn't right because Terri always called, or she would come and let her know if she was going somewhere else, or normal things that a person that's 23, 24 years old would do if their mom was watching their child. And anyway, going back to how they found Terri, she was on Lanham Road, which is off of Free Silver, which is off of 144. They're right in the town of Knoxville, Kentucky. It's still in Daviess County. And a volunteer fireman happened to be driving by that road, or down that road rather, and seen some smoke, realized that that was out of the ordinary. The house that was actually on fire or was smoking was back in off the road up on a hill, kind of back in the wooded area. So he knew that something was going on. He immediately went and checked it out, and then had the people that was with him to go make a phone call at the next home where there was somebody available. And of course they dispatched out fire, and there's some questions about some of this, but this is the story that we've kind of been told and figured out through the years. But from there, that's when the firemen started arriving, found Terri, was able to pull her out, but it was too late. And the case has been worked on off and on with the Daviess County Sheriff's Office for many, many years. Matter of fact, this year will be 45 years since it's happened. And, we just continue to try to help them, and they try to help us. We may go for a while without hearing anything, any updates, but we still know that as a family we still got to advocate for her, keep her name out there, because there's still people every day that I tell the story to, or they hear about it and they're like, I had no idea, I've lived here all my life, and I've never heard this story. So we just hope that one day this case will be solved.
Yeah, and I know I'm just thinking through my head, like, if that happened to my family, I'm not sure how I'd respond. And
Right.
then, like, you're living with a bunch of unanswered questions, and surely there has to be some kind of lead somewhere. And so I'm not saying I can understand that because I haven't lived through it,
Right.
but I think I'd be in a really tough spot if I was in the same shoes that you guys were in. And so, you talked about it's been 45 years. That's older than me.
Right.
It's a long time. 10 years older than me, actually. But what has it been like living? And I know you have been married into that family, and
Right.
so you can even speak to your ex-husband or even to his grandma. But what's it like living this long with unanswered questions?
Well, I think because I started looking into this case so early on, my ex-husband's pretty quiet about it. A lot of people
Hmm.
don't even realize that this was his mom that it happened to, because he ended up being adopted by, his aunt and uncle, and they took him in and raised him.
Hmm.
So, to everyone around us, that's his mom and dad.
Yeah.
So whenever we talk about it a little bit, people are kind of surprised because they didn't realize that we had this story. And so I think that, going back to your question, if you
Yeah.
will, again, I may have gotten off here
No,
on
you're
that a
good.
little
I was
bit.
talking about, like, it's been
Oh, what
45
it's been
years.
like.
So
Yeah, 45
so
years, what it's been like.
what's it like with all those unanswered questions?
Right. Having the unanswered questions has been hard because, like I said, when people come to us and they want to know about it, we want to be able to say, hey, this happened, but there's strong leads, and we just don't know that that's the case.
Hmm.
And living with that's been difficult. Now Terry's son and I have children together, of course, like I said, and they are older now, and they're asking questions about why and how. And so, it's heavy. It's
Hmm.
heavy, deep, and dark at times. So,
Yeah, and it is, especially when you might. I mean, I'm sure there's thoughts in your head of, like, I'm sure this person may still be out there and whatnot, and so and that
right.
could be a whole other podcast.
Right.
We're not going to go too far into the true crime aspect, but you talk about this story, and how you've investigated into it. You spent a lot of time and effort into it. There's still, what you said, there's a Facebook page for her, and we'll
Right.
link that in the show notes.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
so make sure you go out and look at that, especially if you're interested in figuring out how to advocate for this cold case, or even if you have any tips or anything like that that you can hand out to Penny and her family. But I think I know the answer to this, but I don't want to assume. What inspired you to start advocating for other unsolved cases in Owensboro, Davis County?
Well, honestly, I just kind of stumbled upon them.
Mm,
I did not realize that there were so many. And like I said, early on, I started working on trying to figure out some things, just trying to fill in some missing pieces for us as a family that, we didn't really have answers for. And I think by filling in those pieces, I ended up seeing that there may be some connections to some other cases. You
mhm.
know, I've made up a list since I started looking into her case even more the last couple years, a list of, gosh, there's probably 15 other cases that either are solved but still maybe have some questions to them,
Okay.
or unsolved, which the majority of them are unsolved and missing people from our area. And that's not
Mhm,
including the ones that, I've had people reach out to me since, this, and say,
mhm,
hey, my brother was found in the river, or my cousin, was found here, and we think this is, odd. And even
mhm.
though, everything checked out, we've just wondered if this could be connected to something else. I've had
Yeah.
people to reach out to me over that. Even more so, like I said, in the last 2 years, I really started pushing more for answers on it, because the aunt that raised my ex-husband, who he called mom, she passed away. And I think when she passed away, it just kind of felt like, gosh, there's another one gone, and
Mhm.
another one that doesn't have answers, because of course Terry's mom passed away several years ago without answers, and we just needed to do everything we could to and can to figure
Mhm.
out a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's not that you're like, oh, I can't live without it. It's nice to have conclusion, right? It's just
Right.
nice to have, like, okay, like now we know, and
Right.
there's no question about it. We know, and look at all the work that we've done to get to this point, and
Right.
so
And those other cases, even though they may not be connected to Terry's, and looking into those and seeing how this person could be linked this way or that way, it's
mhm.
really become interesting to, to to see how those connections could be. Some of them aren't anything, some of them are. So,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We and you mentioned there's like 15 cases out there that are still unsolved,
oh yeah,
but
there's several.
yeah, there's several. But are there any specific cases in our community that you feel deserve renewed attention today? I know Terry's one of those, I'm sure, but what else?
Well, here's the thing. That's a great question, because through the years, we hear a lot about the Shannon Green and David Dwayne Bell, I believe was his
Hmm.
name, and Angie Dickens. Those are the three people that went missing. They ended up finding one of the ladies, but went missing in 1986 here in Owensboro, and that those stories have been covered quite a bit, as they should be, rightfully so. But, like with Terry's case, hers has been covered quite a bit too, but I feel like that's because I've pushed for it so
Hmm.
much. But there are so many other ones. It's really hard to pick another case. So I don't really know. I think all of them deserves the attention. It's really hard to
Hmm.
pick one other one specifically that, of course, the gentleman that was found without the hands and the feet,
Hmm.
that case, they've recently identified him through genetic genealogy,
Oh
which,
yeah.
in the DNA,
Hmm.
which has become a big thing for me too, even with Terry's case, and trying to figure that out, if there's that possibility. And,
Hmm.
we've went down that path. So I don't know if there's one specific case. I don't know if I can name just one, but I would
Hmm.
say there would be several.
And I'm sure there's hope out there still, because cold cases, although rare, but there are cold cases that are solved
Oh, every day. Yes.
many years later. And
Right.
so that's why it's still good to hold out hope, because
Right.
there's always that chance. And so
The ad-
hope.
I'm sorry. I was
No,
going to
go
say
ahead.
the advancement, just alone the advancement in the
Mhm,
DNA and the genealogy, and being able to connect, somebody off of just one speck of blood, or
mhm.
one hair, or, just different things like that. I think that's the reason why these old cases are now coming to the forefront and being solved like they are
Yeah, I
now.
would agree. The advancement of technology, medical technology, I mean, I'm sure
Right.
that really does help. I'm just thinking, even while we talk, like, I guess it'd be hard to go, because it's been 45 years. So to go to that area and even try to do maybe a scan for DNA or anything like that would be hard, I would assume. But are they using any of that new technology in Terri's case? Looking for a place to get active, connect with others, and have fun as a family? Then come check out The Rec at FBC Owensboro. From open gym and a weight room to upward sports and community events, there's something for everyone. Memberships are super affordable, just $2 a day, $10 a month, or $60 a year. And get this, families, you only pay $120 max for the entire family for the whole year. And if you're a senior, college student, or one of our city heroes like a teacher, first responder, or healthcare worker, you get a discount too. The Rec is more than a gym, it's a place to belong.
Well, I reached out to a company called Othram back a couple years ago and got in touch with them and linked them with the sheriff's office. And they kind of were already familiar with Othram, I believe, and they've been in touch with them. And I think that at this point, with some of the stuff that's out there with Terri's, it's not quite to the point where they can pull enough DNA off of it to match up with somebody, although there might still be some stuff there. It may not be strong enough. There may not be a high enough percentage off of it. If that makes sense.
Well, because you don't want to just arrest anybody.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
They grew up there in that area.
Yeah. We've waited this long. Honestly, it's probably going to take somebody, having something weighing heavy on their chest at this point, and somebody speaking up and saying, hey, I remember this. I don't want to take this to my grave. I've got to get it off my chest. Yeah. That's what it's going to take, I feel like.
Yeah, and not that we're trying to be investigators, but I just have another question. I have a curiosity question. So you said that her friend was with her until Reed Road-ish, and that hasn't really helped any, I know, like, as far as, like, eyewitness account?
Well, there's been a lot of question about her friend. Her friend has now passed away. I don't know that they were extremely, extremely close, like a sister would be, but I know they were fairly good friends, and it just is hard for us as a family to think that her friend left her in that car and didn't contact the police immediately. The police ended up contacting her within, a day or so. And,
or even like a sketch. I mean, I just
they did interview her enough to where she give her statement. They got a police, a sketch, which I do have that sketch in Justice for Teri Howell, Owensboro, Kentucky, on her Facebook page. And you can see that sketch and even some comparisons. But I think that there was some red flags with what she was saying, and I don't know if there might have been some alcohol impairment that evening. That was always a possibility.
Especially if you're bar hopping,
right? I mean, there could be a number of different things. And through the years, she was very open when they would ask questions. She passed polygraph test, things like that. But it is hard to believe somebody jumped from a moving car going that fast in a dark area and only have one little scratch on their arm is what we've been told, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at with what her friend said.
And again, we're not on here to solve the case. I'm just this is my mind of just curiosity.
It does. All
right, so we talked about cases, there would be renewed attention. We've talked a little bit more in depth about Terri's case, but what kind of response or resistance have you experienced when trying to raise awareness?
Well, I think for the most part, everybody is so open to hearing what we have to say. And, I don't want to say that the law enforcement aspect of it hasn't been helpful, because I think they have, but I also know that there's some things that have come up over the last few years about the pictures being missing, from the crime scene. We have questions about Terri was buried less than 24 hours after being found, after autopsy was completed, and she wasn't even identified. There's questions with this. There's a bunch of red flags in her case. Now, why everybody seems to want to have a conspiracy theory over it all, there could be something there. We just don't know. And we feel like, for the most part, if we've ever had answers, they've been answered to us. They've just not given us a lot more detail.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it does. It does.
Explaining that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think it would be hard. Like, I'm just thinking on my end, like, if there are red flags popping up, I think it'd be really easy to kind of fall into conspiracy theories, because you're like, well, if I don't have answers, this is happening. Like, I don't have any other way to explain it. So.
Right. And as far as like a resistance, I would say the biggest resistance is, because I'm just kind of out here. I don't have any type of, you know, anything to I'm just a daughter-in-law looking for answers.
Yeah.
So I'm out here trying to message people on Facebook, trying to, have conversations with people. And I'd say the resistance comes in that aspect of it is if you try to reach out to somebody and you don't get an answer back. Sometimes I feel like that could be a red flag, and I would rather them just say, hey, I don't know anything. And I'd be like, thank you, respectfully, and go on, because I'm not that kind of person that I'm going to keep on. But I would say that's probably the biggest resistance that we've had. Otherwise, we really haven't had much of resistance in our case because most everybody would love to see this case solved. I mean, I think that, this is one of the older cases here in Daviess County, and it really
I mean, this first time I've heard
solve.
of it, I'm like,
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to see it solved. And so, and so we're going to talk about biggest obstacles right here. And this is just a warning, like there's just no chance to dog the sheriff's department or the Martin police or Martin's. That's where I grew up. The Owensboro Police Department. I have some friends in the Owensboro Police Department. But in your opinion, what are the biggest obstacles to solving cold cases here in Owensboro and Daviess County?
Oh, 100% the manpower. The manpower that they can give, like, the sheriff's office, they have, that's the thing people don't realize, they get frustrated when they feel like these cold cases aren't getting solved. And they're not, whether they're a couple of years old or they're 45 years old. If the sheriff's office doesn't have the means, or the Owensboro Police Department or KSB doesn't have the means to have a detective work on this case constantly, they just don't, because every day there's crime, and that crime that's being caused today is pulling that person off that case,
Yep.
I mean, we don't have expectations of thinking that they're going to be on this every day, and I don't think anybody should have that expectation. It's just not going to happen, especially after all these years. But what we do hope is that there is some time, that they can devote and to try to find that time to devote to these cases. And I think that's probably the biggest obstacle is the manpower. And I would love to be able to help in some way, whatever I can do, whether it's to advocate for them, to have somebody specifically in our area for these cases. I would welcome
or even
that.
a regional. I mean,
Right,
because again, you cover
absolutely.
multiple counties. I'm sure other counties that have the same kind of
Right.
issue with cold cases.
Yeah, there's such a backlog too with our lab, with our Kentucky State lab. That's been also, a big issue with these cases as well. So
Gotcha. All right. Well, you talked about advocating or even advocating for the police to get more manpower. How can our listeners, and I'm hoping we have a lot at this point. If we don't, it's okay. You're important, even if it is one person.
Right.
But how can our listeners support family like yours or get involved in advocating for justice?
The biggest thing I think is ask your family, ask your older family members, do you remember this? Grandma, cousin, aunt, whatever, do you remember this happening? Because, this girl's looking for some help here, and she needs to know if, anybody was around at this time that may know something. I think that would be the biggest help.
Yeah. So not being afraid to ask questions.
Right. Ask those questions.
There, gotcha. All right. Well, if you could say one thing to someone who might know something but has never come forward, and I'm sure you have a list of things.
Yeah.
But what would you want to tell them? What would you want them to do to take action?
I think that just not being afraid. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Somebody probably knows more than what they're willing to say, because they don't want to say something bad against their family member or their good friend at that time. They're scared of what could happen to them. I don't doubt that might have played a role in, her friend, and what was going on with her, being scared. Just try to get past that fact that you're scared, because if you don't say something, we're not going to ever get this answer. I mean, my ex-husband grew up without his mom, think about that. That's what I tell people.
Or kids
I
without
say
their grandma.
that a
Well, I mean,
lot.
they had his aunt, but
Well,
still.
yeah, but not the biological connection there that, that they ask the questions about from time to time.
Mhm.
There's people that lost their sister, their daughter. It's a big thing. So put yourself in those shoes and just think about getting over the being scared. Come forward, contact the sheriff's office, let them know. If you're afraid to talk to them, I'll always talk to somebody about it. You can definitely reach out to me. I'm always willing to take information to the sheriff's office. I've done that many times, for people anonymously, just to kind of give a tip out
Mhm.
there. So,
Yeah, so I mean, you're a team player, and
yeah.
if you can help in any kind of way, you're there for them. So make sure you reach out to Penny. I mean, obviously, if you have you please reach out to the police.
Yes.
Whatever. They're both good options. But Penny, how would we talked about Owensboro, talked about Daviess
Yeah.
County, and don't get me wrong, like this is deep stuff,
Mhm.
and so we want to cover these kind of stories as well. But how would you describe Owensboro in one word?
Eventful.
Eventful. And why would you say eventful?
I would say eventful because I've lived here. I was born and raised here. I've lived here all my life. And, there's always something going on, the good, the bad, just the everyday life.
Mm,
It's an eventful place. And, people like to find the negatives, but there's also a lot of positives. And, the positive things, just like this weekend, we have a festival coming
yep.
up.
Hmm.
There seems to be always something for somebody. It may not be exactly what you want to do, but there's somebody out there enjoying something that we're having in our
Exactly.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just getting together like a
Hmm.
good good friends get together. There's a lot of good camaraderie, just events in your backyard, just with friends
Hmm.
and stuff. So
No, that's
and
really.
have these talks with your friends
Yeah.
during these
Hmm.
events.
Yeah. Be real with each other. Don't be afraid to talk about things. But one thing we're going to talk about here in just a second is 270 seconds of fame, which is our rapid fire.
Yes.
But on a serious note, yeah, talk to each other, have fun, and there's always something going on. I mean, whether you go to romp or barbecue and barrels or whatever the case may be, go out and have some fun. So, well, Miss Penny, it is time for our 270 seconds of fame, the
All
rapid
right.
fire round where we get to know Owensboro in 270 seconds or less or more. I don't know. We don't time it.
Okay.
But no time to think, quick answers, no hesitation, all Owensboro. So let's dive into what makes Owensboro with 270 seconds of pure, unfiltered fun. Are you ready, Miss Penny?
I don't know. We'll
All right,
see.
let's go. Let's go. All right, so the first question is, what is your favorite barbecue spot in Owensboro?
Oh, I like Old South because the
Okay.
people there, the waitresses and stuff,
Yeah, Greg's
they're
a great
so
guy.
nice. They are really great. I don't know. I feel like probably the barbecue might be a little better at Old Hickory, but I like some of these other smaller people too. That's a hard. That's a hard
That is a
answer.
hard question. Yeah. We've
that's
had a
hard.
lot of Moonlight, Old Hickory. You're the first one to say Old South. So
Yeah, well,
they
I
have
like
good
the
bacon.
people. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the breakfast.
The breakfast is great. All right. So you talked about in your word for Owensboro is eventful. So what is your go-to local event or festival?
Well, I would say, growing up, of course, our barbecue festival was the
Mhm.
biggest thing. I went to that every year. My parents set up there, as a vendor. So,
Mhm.
I was there every year. So I would say that's probably one of the more eventful things that we have yeah.
Yeah, and you say, I mean, I'm just out of curiosity, but vendor, what'd they do?
Oh, they made arts and crafts.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that was a
That's
big
really neat.
thing back in
Mhm.
the day here in Owensboro. Yeah.
That's really neat. All right. So now we're gonna switch up a little bit. What's your go-to coffee shop in town?
Oh, I don't drink coffee.
Okay.
But
What's
I
your
will
favorite place to
say,
get a drink?
well, I will say though, let me give a little shout out to Red Swing because
Okay, yeah.
I've noticed that they have an area there within their coffee shop that you can have events and things like that.
Oh yeah.
So I would say maybe them.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
their new place over on the west side. They have
Yeah,
a
exactly.
swing that you can sit on, and you
Yeah,
can have
it's
some
really
fun there.
sweet.
Yeah.
Cute.
Red Swing's great. I like Brandon Dukes. He's doing a good job over there. All right, so we talked about Owensboro. What is your best view in Owensboro?
Best view. I have two actually.
Okay.
I am West County kind of girl, and I know that when you get to the top the hill there in Panther, 554 Nickel Ridge area, there's beautiful views at night of the
Okay.
city lights up in
Mhm.
there. That's really pretty.
I'll have to check it out. Okay.
And of course, in the fall it's better.
Mhm.
But of course the riverfront.
Yes.
I love the riverfront. It's so
that's
pretty.
a popular one, and I know
Yeah.
it's big and it's it's a prominent place, but it is really pretty, especially I think sunset on the river with the bridge.
Yeah, and the
is
storms
beautiful.
when they roll in. It's pretty at different times. Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, so the next question I have is, and you might have some older kids, I don't know, but what's your favorite local park to hang out at?
My kids loved Legion and Moreland.
Okay.
But me as an adult, we have our family reunion every year at Panther Creek.
Oh, okay.
And so we've done that for many, many years. And I love going out there. We love taking the old car out there and taking pictures,
It is really
in
neat
the
out
fall.
there,
And
you
it's
got the
really
swinging
pretty
bridges.
area.
Yeah, Panther Creek's a great place to go. All right, so what's your favorite spot to grab a late night snack or dessert in Owensboro?
Oh, goodness. Well, a little secret here. I make my own desserts typically.
Oh, nice.
And
Okay.
I don't know. I would say late night snack, maybe Taco Bell, just because
Okay.
it's so late. I don't
Yeah.
know. Things close down so early
They
anymore.
do, yeah.
Yeah, so
Like 7, 8 o'clock.
I hate to say just a regular old restaurant like
Yeah,
that.
no, Taco Bell's good.
but Taco late at night.
Yeah, they're open late, so gotta appreciate that.
Mhm.
What do you consider as the most underrated spot in Owensboro?
Ooh, I've not really ever thought about that, I don't guess.
Yeah. Some of these questions have stumped some people.
Yeah, maybe the most underrated spot. Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like all of our area really sees, of course, downtown and, I don't know. Being a Sardo girl, let's say Sardo. Let's
Okay,
just
there you
say
go.
Sardo.
Yeah. The cottage is a good
Yeah.
place to go.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Out there in Surgo. So, all right. The next question is where is your go-to place in Owensboro to relax or unwind?
At home.
Okay. Yeah.
Typically at home. Yeah, don't go out a whole lot. So I would just say mainly at home in the backyard.
Okay.
Have a little fire pit,
That's nice.
barbecue,
Just
jazz
relax.
playing. Yeah, just a nice, quiet evening at home.
That's really cool. All
I'm
right.
older.
No, you're fine. But so the next question is, and I know Friday After 5 is going, but what's your best place to catch live music in Owensboro?
Ooh, I wish there was more places to do that. Of course, Romp is so big, and
It's very
that's
big, yeah.
only one time a year, of course. But yeah, I would say Friday After 5, you're probably going to find something there. But I also know there's Shiloh's Lounge. I think that
So that was
Justin-
mentioned earlier, yeah.
he brings in. I think he brings in some people. I have not been there for an
Okay.
event for music, but I think he does bring in people. Just for small shows. at
Yeah,
night.
I'll have to check it out because I had James Gage on. He's the Owensboro food critic.
Yeah.
Him and Shiloh are best buds, and I feel like maybe it was was it Toad Hop? It was somebody. Anyway, listen to other previous episodes because somebody else mentioned Shiloh's too.
Yeah.
And so I've yet to check that place out. I heard they have really good smoked meat. And I
Yeah.
need to get over there. So
Yeah, definitely. And hey, even if, there's somebody that's wanting to try that, we'd like to have a good jazz place maybe around here. That'd be fun.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
actually lived in New Orleans for a little bit, and
Yeah.
Jazz Club all over the place, and they were actually pretty fun to go to. We
Yeah.
didn't get into the alcohol or anything, but
Right.
just to sit back and listen and relax.
Enjoy the mood. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice, and
music.
it's a music that you don't really hear a whole lot of anymore.
Yeah.
So that's cool. All right, so so what's your favorite local restaurant for a casual night out?
Ooh, gosh, we've always loved the Briar Patch. That's
Yep,
always
that's
been,
good, yeah. The
that's
salad
probably
bar.
been a favorite. Yeah, yes, definitely the salad bar. I would say probably the Briar Patch. That would
Okay.
be the best.
All right, that's a good one. All right, which high school are you a fan of? Are you a fan of Owensboro, DC, Apollo, or Catholic?
Oh, this is hard for me because I am a 1995 Apollo graduate. So
Okay.
I like
Man,
to
I've had so many Apollo
root
people
for
on.
the Eagles.
Mhm.
However, I did work for Owensboro Public Schools for
Okay.
several years, and I think a whole lot of the OHS team there at the high
Mhm.
school here, and I'd say that's kind of split.
Yeah, no, I get you. I if you listen to this podcast, I'm a character coach at for the football team at Apollo, and I didn't do this on purpose.
Yeah.
But I feel like most of my guests have actually been Apollo grads so far.
Yeah.
And so that's really interesting to think about. But yeah, it's okay if you like the Red Devils. It's fine. What is your favorite thing about living in Owensboro?
Just that my family's here.
Mhm.
Everybody seems to, be able to gravitate in areas. It's easy to get around. If I want to run and see somebody real quick, I can just hop in the car and be there within 10 minutes.
Mhm.
It's just such a nice town and easy to navigate.
Yeah, it is really
Yeah.
easy to navigate. What is all right? So if you had a recommendation for one local place for a first-time visitor, where would it be?
Hmm. Um, you know, it just depends. I think the botanical gardens is
Okay.
really pretty.
I have yet to be over there.
It's very pretty, and
Mhm.
again, this is coming from an middle-aged woman here, but I feel like it's really pretty. If you're into that kind of thing,
Okay.
that's really nice. Our
Mhm.
parks are really great too, but yeah, I think that would be a great place to take somebody just kind of different and
Mhm.
off the beaten path. Yeah,
Gotcha. I'm a West Sider, so I need to get over there. 'Cause I've heard lots of good things about it.
right.
All right. So in one word, describe Owensboro's vibe.
Oh.
So I know you said eventful
Uh,
earlier, but do you have a word that describes its vibe?
I don't know. I think still eventful.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
I think
I do these
that's
questions,
my
and I think sometimes they're answered already in the
Yeah,
podcast, but
yeah, I think that's probably the vibe. I think,
mm,
there's always something going on.
yeah,
Always.
no,
So,
that's awesome. And then the last question for the rapid fire, and I have another question to conclude the episode with, and this is probably the most negative thing that we have is, what's one thing that you would change about Owensboro?
I wish that there was a little bit more for kind of our teenagers to do without, feeling like they're restricted or, I do think that. And growing up, we always found something to do, but I feel like times have changed quite a bit,
Yeah,
since when I was a teenager. But I definitely feel like even with my own kids, there's only so many movies you can see as a
that's true.
teenager
Yeah,
and, things like that.
yeah.
But
Well, now you can stream at your house, so you don't
yeah,
even need to go to the theater.
exactly.
Mhm,
I wish that we could go back to having that type of thing
mhm.
for teenagers. And also something that I noticed this week, Adam Paris had posted on the History of Owensboro page.
Yeah,
There
which if
was
you don't follow him, like that
Yeah,
dude takes amazing pictures. I need to
he's
get him on here.
awesome. Yeah. He had posted a picture about an expo,
Okay.
like a picture of from like 1920s. Anyway, and I was thinking back about that. I even made a comment on it. I wish we could bring back that an
Mhm.
expo to the city where small businesses, any business, can get together and maybe free of charge. Even I know we have our farmers market, but something just for every business.
Mhm.
Just to set up for a weekend, because we used to have that at the Executive Inn years ago.
Yeah.
Big expo.
Okay.
So I wish we could do that again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so hopefully
Oh,
maybe we'll get something
maybe.
going in the future. Maybe not me, but somebody else. That's a big
Big
task.
undertaking,
That's a
yeah.
very big undertaking. But yeah, go check out Adam Pears. His son played in our basketball league, so I kind of know him a little bit.
Yeah.
But his pictures are amazing, so shout out to him real quick. But Penny, I have one more question that will conclude this. What I think has really been a really good episode, and it is I always ask every guest. What is one thing that you would like to leave the listeners? It could be inspiring, a challenge, whatever. But I always like asking everybody who comes on about one thing they would like to leave their listeners.
And I think this is going to answer you. Something I've listened to your recent podcast, and Braden West was on,
Oh
and
yeah,
you were
yeah, that was a good
talking about
episode.
faith. It was a
Hmm.
great episode, and you were talking about faith and what faith is believing without seeing.
Hmm.
And I think that is true in so many ways, not just within Terry's case. I really feel the faith there, believing without seeing, but just in so many other ways. If we would just have faith a little bit more,
Hmm.
in that believing without seeing.
Yeah, and I hear you out on that one. It's really easy to think about. What do we put our faith in that we don't really think about? Like getting in the
Right,
car and going from A to B, sitting in a chair, hoping that when I plug these mics in, they work.
right, right.
And I feel like a lot of times that and again, faith can be applied to multiple things. I'm a pastor. I'm not going to go super hard on the religious side
Yeah,
of things, but yeah, have faith.
yeah,
We make it so difficult sometimes when a
right.
lot of times we don't even think about the faith we put in other things. So
It's true.
that's really good stuff. All right. Well, Miss Penny, I'm so glad that you came on today. I'm so glad you reached out. This has been a good episode.
Yes,
We hope that we find justice for Teri Howell and that there'll be more leads and hopefully the technology will come through, manpower will come through, and there'll be an opportunity to solve this case and give you guys some conclusion or some ending to the case. That's my hope, at least.
right.
But yeah, so again, check out the show notes. We're gonna have a Facebook page link in there for Teri Howell's Facebook page, and then reach out to Miss Penny. I'll put, if it's okay with you, I'll put your Facebook page in there as well.
Sure.
That's a way for them to reach out to you. And thanks for joining us this week. We've had a lot of fun, and this is about stories. Stories range in so many different all across the spectrum. There's not really a set way to do a story. So I've enjoyed this story. I think it's been good. Go ahead and review the podcast. Leave a review. Don't just review it, but leave a review. Go ahead and subscribe. Share it with your friends. I'm sure Miss Penny would appreciate it. Share it with your friends. I would, just because, again, it creates more listeners, more opportunities for guests, and an opportunity to share more about Owensboro and just how awesome Owensboro is. And thanks for listening this week, and we'll see you next. Thanks for tuning in to All Things Owensboro, where we celebrate the stories, people, and places that make our city special. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves this town as much as you do. Until next time, Owensboro, keep loving local, supporting one another, and making Owensboro a place we're all proud to call home.